Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. I'm happy to have my coworker McKenna Dallmeyer joining today. We've been working together for a while at Horizon 3, and I've really been impressed with her background, seeing all the cool stuff that she's done. And kind of where she started out is kind of unique for most people that do work in the offensive security areas. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Phil. Glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Glad to have you on. I think you got a really unique story, and I'm glad that you had the time to get on and record an episode.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm excited to share my story, and hopefully it can inspire some people out there. I think all walks of life can come into cybersecurity, and it doesn't matter your background, but you can make a big difference bringing that background because it takes all of us to make the world a safer place.
Definitely takes the different mindsets and backgrounds because, you know, if you work in a certain industry, there's some vulnerabilities that you may realize that someone that didn't work in that area may not realize. And
Exactly.
as I mentioned before the show, I have a lot of people that listen that are just trying to break in or people that are new to the industry. So that the stories are very important and help inspire people. So I'm sure everyone's going to get a lot of good and enjoy your story.
Definitely. Yes.
So first thing, what do we do? Everyone I have on, I have them share their hacker origin story. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your origin story, how you've kind of started out in your career education-wise up until where you're at now.
Okay, sure. So going way back, I guess, my whole life, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I wanted to work with animals. I had all the animals, right? Horses, dogs, hamster, rabbit, bird, cows, everything. That was my dream, to go to Texas A&M, become a veterinarian. Then in high school, I decided that maybe isn't what I want to do 10 years from now. My mom asked me, hey, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I really couldn't picture being a vet. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? So I said, okay, what do I enjoy? Well, I like watching the news and I like current events and things going on. So why don't I switch to political science? And this was my senior year in high school. So I was about to go to A&M and switch my major over from biomedical science to political science. So then started going to A&M, doing that, doing internships and working with a nonprofit, actually working as a journalist, most of my time outside of class. And then about halfway through, I decided that isn't what I wanted to do either. Because I was like, oh, really the only thing I could do with this is probably go to DC and not really the people I guess I want to work with, right? Working on the Hill, always, unless you get in a really good office with some really good people, might not go well. So I decided that I really wanted to also work in the intelligence community. And at the time, they weren't really looking for political science degrees. So I decided to go for cybersecurity. So Texas A&M at the time just had a minor in cybersecurity. And then I decided to transfer out from A&M and attend Liberty University. Also, my mom is a software test engineer, and she's loves her job and loves being in cyber. So that served as a form of inspiration for me. So then I transferred to Liberty, and at the same time, COVID hit. It was in 2020. And I decided to just finish out my degree online, going with cybersecurity. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, right? Because I knew about computers, being a Gen Z, always having a computer in my hand, right, with a smartphone, and being curious about them because I think that's the wave of the future, right? It's always going to be in our life from now on. So beyond that, I didn't have a lot of familiarity with it. So very overwhelming of a field to get into, right? But I knew I just needed to take it one day at a time. And during my senior year, I interned with the NSA, and that was super fun. Really loved the experience. I was in a development shop. So really getting hands-on with coding, and figured out that's not what I wanted to do. Coding is not my thing. But then after that, I signed on with the NSA full-time in a development program. and got to move around to different offices after I graduated from Liberty that following spring, and got to move around to different offices and see different sides of cyber before finally realizing that I wanted to do offensive security and penetration testing. So then I got a few certs in penetration testing and network security, and then decided to leave the NSA earlier this year. And now I work for Horizon 3 as a technical account manager, getting to combine my passion for pen testing and people by working with our customers and getting to share our awesome tool with the world. That's a quick synopsis.
that was a good amount of time to get all that in, but yeah, very interesting background. So as far as the pen testing stuff goes, kind of what area of pen testing do you enjoy the most out of the different types?
With my certifications, I got them in web, but recently I've gotten more interested, in host penetration testing. I took an OSCP boot camp that I really enjoyed. It was 8 weeks, 6 hours a week of instructional time, and then about 20 hours of lab work every week. So it was a lot, and I really enjoyed it. Really got to dive headfirst into pen testing, and served me well for this job. It really prepared me and gave me, a high level, but also a deep level look at host pen testing. So now I'd say that's what I like the most. And I'm also with Synack Red Team as well. I got started with them after I got my certifications because you're able to fast track the interview process. So I signed up with them, and now I do that on the side. I have a LLC that I set up for fuzzing work. So I also do that on the side, and then Synack. So
Very
cool. Really cool. Trying to do that as much as keep up my technical skills while I also work on the customer facing side.
Yeah, that's good. And definitely your background will help at Horizon 3 be able to understand the tools, because some of my experience from working for startups, a lot of the people that come in, or even product companies, could be around for a while, not necessarily still a startup, coming with security backgrounds is not always offensive security. A lot of it's just basic security, and trying to learn the offensive security side is so much different. So I think it's a little more of a learning curve sometimes. So be able to come in with that type of background is great.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely overwhelming, right? Because you hear hacker and, people go to DEF CON and Black Hat, and they're like these pro hackers, and, they know the ins and outs of every single tool out there, right? Hashcat and CrackMap exec, and they can just run all of them, fast. So it's like, how do I even get started in this? And yeah, I definitely felt that, and I still feel it, on a weekly basis or whatever. I'm like, oh, compared to so-and-so, right? I pale in comparison, but we all start somewhere, and we got to just take it one step at a time, one day at a time, one class at a time. And then one day we will be there.
Yeah, it just takes time. It's interesting too how much things have changed, because when I first got into pen testing back in 2012, the Microsoft MS 0867 vulnerability was pretty common. So you walked into somewhere and you saw that, then the Metasploit module for that would usually yield successful breach of a system, get access to it. So it's was a lot easier, but all the endpoint detection systems are getting tougher to bypass. So a lot of the obfuscation is a lot more needed than there was back then. So it's so much more technology to test too than what there was at one time. As you mentioned, the web, and then you have all the APIs, IoT devices, all the connected devices, and now machine learning and AI are getting so popular that I've seen bug bounty platforms out there to pen test and do bug bounty against LLMs and different infrastructure and services for AI. So it's just amazing how things are growing.
Yeah. And a lot of those things are untouched, right? Like a lot of people don't have those specialty skills or those niche skills. So for anybody trying to jump into cybersecurity, I think those things aren't going away, right? IoT devices, just the technology that surrounds us, right? A lot of people don't have those specialty skills yet. So that would be, I guess, my advice is to try to dig into those things and make that your thing, right?
That's kind of one of the advantages is to coming into the industry now, because one of the things that I've seen, over my pen testing career is whenever I was getting into it, cloud was around, but you really weren't doing cloud pen testing yet. And then still a lot of it was working out the permissions to be able to pen test a cloud environment and all that. So a lot of people like myself coming into it, or starting back then, didn't have the cloud experience, so we're kind of behind the curve on that. But one of the things you would see is people coming in new that have been taking the cloud courses, and then once they try to take cloud pen testing, they've got a little bit of knowledge leading into that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I was actually, when I was giving my last answer, I was just thinking about the cloud. Yeah, because that just came up, and that was all the rage, right? Everybody, if you knew cloud, you had a job. And I was just thinking today, I was like, I really need to take a cloud course because I don't know a whole lot about it. I didn't take that in college, but that would have been super beneficial. So yeah, I mean, most customers that we talk to have cloud environments, and yeah, you need to know how to pen test those and be able to work in those kind of environments. Totally new lingo and syntax, right, with those environments. So yeah, that's another thing to learn for sure.
So what advice would you give to someone that's wanting to become a pen tester? Say they're starting out new, haven't started their education journey yet. What would you recommend?
Sure. So what I did is I heard about it, or I knew of the concept, right? But then at work, I tried to talk to as many people as I could who were pen testers, right? So if you have any kind of connections on LinkedIn, or let's say you work in a place that has pen testers, try to talk to those people and just get a idea of what their day-to-day is, and see if that would fit your goal of like what you want, right, in a day-to-day job. That's how I really got interested in it, because some of the smartest people I talked to were pen testers. So I was like, oh, that's somebody I want to be, right? So that was a good first step. Then I was like, okay, this sounds like something that would fit what I'm looking for. It seems exciting. Every day seems different. You get to interface with the customer to an extent. So that sounded fun to me. Then after that, I was like, okay, now I need to put in the work to actually gain the technical skills. So I think starting to get certifications really helps. Like if you're past college and you can't take those classes, right, that are specialty pen testing classes, then getting certifications. I got my GPen, which is the regular like SANS penetration testing cert, more host-based. And then I got my GWAPT, so the SANS web app pen testing cert, and then also the Python coder one for pen testers. And those were really good because they gave a lot of hands-on experience. And then I think the tests or the exams that you take, right, to get that certification are more realistic, because you can actually use notes and use Google. So it's more realistic of what you're going to do every day, right? There's probably not many opportunities that you won't be able to look things up or talk to somebody or use your notes. So I really enjoyed taking those exams because I felt like it was a better measure of my skills than other certifications. I don't think like CEH, I don't think you can use your notes on those. And then they don't have as many labs associated with the exam either. So it's not a true test of, did I learn how to be a pen tester? So I really enjoyed those. A good, I guess, first level cert to get if you're like just getting into cybersecurity would be Network Plus, Security Plus. Those are really good foundational certs that I got. And then past that, I mean, going to conferences and trying to learn as much as you can, that really helped me. A lot of things were over my head, right? I didn't understand them. It was new terms, terminology, very high level stuff, right? Then I'm like, oh, I've never even heard of this, but it gets you that familiarity. And then when you hear it the next time, right, you can go look it up, right, when you're there. But then when you hear it next time, you're more familiar with that term and with that concept. So then you can actually use it in your day-to-day. Listening to podcasts. I've listened to some bug bounty podcasts that I really enjoyed. They should listen to the Phillip Wylie Show. They can learn from that. I think those are probably my main things that I did that have gotten me to here. And I still have a long way to go. Of course, I'm still 24 and getting into this, but that's helped me tremendously. And then actually trying to use it in my day-to-day job has helped in picking up these side jobs, I guess, like with Synack. That's helped as well. But yeah, big thing is hands-on experience, because you can read all you want and watch videos. But yeah, if you're not actively doing it, then it won't stick, and you have to keep doing it or else you'll lose that skill, over time, just like with coding.
That's a very good point, because one of the things too, as you know, from using different pen testing and hacking tools, it doesn't always work perfect.
Hmm.
There's trial and error to learn how to get it to work properly. So it's not like some other areas of security that you may configure this way or that, and that's it, and it works. But it's a different animal when it comes to the pen testing tools.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Like if your flag is wrong, right? The whole thing doesn't work. And oh yeah, you want to like beat your head up against the wall sometimes because it's so irritating. But then when you find the answer, it's so rewarding and it works and it's just so great. And then, leaning on other people's knowledge. And I feel like you learn better that way too, right? You learn more after you fail than when you succeed. So, yeah, just trying to hammer that out is very, very important, and more practice with the tools, the better, if that's what you're going for.
So since you're doing this stuff for Synack Red Team, could you kind of explain what that is for the listeners?
Yeah, so it's a crowdsourced type pen testing framework where they have people, Synack Red Teamers, that have signed up to the program and pretty much are bug bountiers. So think you're, I guess, like Bug Crowd, and then there's Hacker One, but this is more selective, I guess, right? You have to apply, and they only take a certain number of red teamers to be a part of it. There are different levels you can be in it. It's like if you hold an active security clearance, then you can do certain targets. If you're a U.S. citizen, you can do certain targets. If you're in one of the Five Eye countries, you can do certain ones. So it's much more, I guess, limited or like tailored, right? Rather than just like Hacker One, where it's just like, okay, free for all, like everybody go for it and you have different levels. This is, you can really fine tune, I guess, what you want, like web, mobile, host. And they've made a really good community of people. So there's like different programs that they have for minorities or women, or if you're new to the program, then they try to get you with like a mentor to get you started. So they really built it out well, and I've enjoyed it. I just started like a month ago, so I'm pretty new actually getting to work on it, but I've been a part of it for a while, and I've been part of the Slack, and it's a really good community, and they seem to be doing, really good work for the organizations that have signed on for them, finding a lot of vulnerabilities and issues, and the payouts are really good. So check that out if you're interested.
So do you only get paid per bug that you find?
Yeah, they have different options. So it's either like traditional vulnerability findings, right, that they'll pay. I think it's like a variable rate for each one. So if they're looking for that bug, then they'll pay you more. If they're not, then it'll be less. But then they also have missions where it's like they're suspecting that there's a vulnerability like CSRF in their web application, and then they want you to test for it. And if you find it, then you do a write-up saying that you are vulnerable, or you do a write-up that it's not. So that's like a quicker way. But those are, of course, a lower payout, like $50 to $100. But yeah, they're pretty generous on the big vulnerabilities, right? That traditional bug bounty hunting that you do. So yeah, very similar.
Very cool. Interesting that they do host base pen testing too, because I know a lot of the bug bounties are either web, IoT, or API or something like that. So that's really cool. That's a good option there for people to get in and get experience with those areas too. And it's not just purely web app.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, they definitely have it locked down. There are a lot of rules, and you have to be VPN'd in before you can do any sort of testing. A lot of legal requirements and things. So definitely a high echelon organization for bug bounty.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have concerns when they always look at what is done to vet the people from the bug bounty company. That's always a big concern.
Yeah, because there's no guarantee, right? I mean, they sign something, but no guarantee that they won't then go out and actually exploit that and, do some ransomware or something. So yeah. That is sketch.
Yeah, because then, in some cases, if you're not doing any kind of background checks and anyone comes on, you just don't know what. But I mean, and I get at the same time too, I think some of these other bug bounty platforms and stuff have had good success too, but I'm sure you run into something everywhere. But it is kind of nice that they're doing the extra check, and it kind of looks better on the resume for someone that's working through them opposed to some of the other platforms.
Yep, exactly.
Actually, we use them. I used to be a red team lead at a company, and we outsourced our web app pen testing. In 1 year, we had a lot of money left over at the end of the year, had a bunch of web apps to be tested. And so we had Synack Red Team tested. So it was really interesting to see, the quality of the work, and then also some of the things that they did in the background. Because like I know they were using several different vulnerability scanners to where some of the other platforms were limited to what the tools the researchers have. So that's what a lot of the platforms only limited to that. So it was nice that they were collecting some information that the researchers could use.
Oh yeah, that's very good. Yeah. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So what kind of things are on your radar to start learning next as far as in the pen testing realm?
So cloud, as I figured out today, talking to all of our customers and their, in cloud environments, I really want to be better versed in that and be more familiar with Azure and Entra, and then GCC as well for our government clients. So Microsoft GCC, yeah, really getting, I think, into that would be very useful. Really want to dig into the Synack stuff now that I've gotten on with them and have kind of gotten started talking to other SRT members and everything. And then past that, I think a lot of people have told me to take the CISP. So that's kind of interesting, but I don't know. I've heard that's a really hard one. So you have it, right?
Yeah.
Have that one? Yep. So I don't know. I'll think about that one.
Yeah. It's interesting because some people say it's hard. Some people, it's not so hard for them or whatever. I mean, I took mine back in 2002. And back then it was like a Scantron sheet. So you sat down in this big group of people where now you go into a testing center. It wasn't that bad. I studied for about 90 days because back then there were only 2 study manuals out. One was Sean Harris's book, which is a little newer than the one I was using. That was by an author named Krutz or something like that. And I was using that book. And then one of the exam crams studied for 90 days and passed it the first time around. The requirements to take the test weren't as strict back then. You have to have as many years of experience. Back then it was like 3 years instead of like now. I think it's like 5 years, depending on, just if you don't have the college experience, and think college, different things kind of shorten the amount of time you have to have. So for me, I used to be a CAD drafter. So I worked for a company that designed physical security, electronic security for prisons. So I had experience with physical security design, as well as I also worked as a security guard. So I kind of worked in that domain. And then also some of the stuff from the sysadmin world was relevant to the test. So I was able to get that experience from there. But I took it back then. It's kind of a good one to have, but I think some people misunderstand it. I think some people, because back then everyone kind of knew of it as more of a management type.
Yeah. Certification
is not really in depth a lot, but it seems not to be a bad one to have, because just to have that for general knowledge of other areas and cybersecurity, it's amazing. It's still managed to be one of the top security certifications, although some people don't respect it that well, but I think it's pretty widely accepted. So not a bad one to have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everyone I've talked to that, people say, I have the CISP, people go, oh, wow. So I think it still holds that weight. So that's cool. So yeah, that one's on my radar. But I'm also thinking about going, I think this is important, right, for people to hear, because I didn't know this was really possible until I started this position. But wanting to be technical, right, and get into cybersecurity, there's also a component that you can also be customer facing, right, and focus on people and use your skills, like those soft skills, right? Those can come into play a lot. For me, I wanted to be technical, wanted to do cybersecurity, but for those years getting into it, I was searching for something that would combine my passion for people and now come of pen testing, but at the time cybersecurity, and how to marry those two things was, I guess, a challenge, because you don't really hear about people talking about that, right? They're like the pro hacker or they're like the developer, and it's like, oh, I don't really want to be either one of those things 100% of the time. So trying to figure out roles for you, and there are so many, right? After looking into it, there are so many roles that you can use your technical background and technical skills that you have in order to relate to people and help them, help businesses, help customers. So really looking into those roles, I think, is very important. So looking on that front, maybe looking into like the project management certification. I'm interested in like the project manager, product manager role for the future. So looking both directions, I guess, growing technically and then also growing those more soft skills, I think is important for my role, at least.
Speaking of soft skills, how much has your journalism background helped?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, that was great. I mean, it's always a good thing to be a good writer. That comes in handy, I think, in any profession. So I'm very glad that I did that and went that route. I always loved writing in high school, essays. We did a thesis throughout college. I always liked writing papers. Grammar is a big thing for me, spelling. So that's helped a lot with writing, blogs or needing to write for different, I guess, the companies that I have worked for, right? Writing reports, writing white papers, things like that. That's really come in handy. So there's also that route, right? If you enjoy writing and you enjoy researching, that's a great route to go. If you're also wanting to stay in the technical side of things. So really there's something for everyone. You just got to find your niche.
Yeah. One of the things I want to ask you, since you brought up that you got the certification for the Python certification. So what do you think about coding or, be able to use Python? Is that required to get into cybersecurity? And just wanted to hear your thoughts on that first.
So I think if I was a pen tester on the daily, right, day to day, that definitely would come into play because you need to know how to script and to make your job easier and more efficient. I think that's very important. I haven't had to use it a whole lot in my day to day. It's more so in my side hustle of fuzzing and I guess now the Synack to make that job easier. So I would say it's a vital skill to have in order to understand things, right? Like maybe you don't need to write it from scratch every time, right? But in order to understand and comprehend somebody else's script or understand what's going on, or when you do research to know what a Python script is doing, I think is very important. So that was a really good cert because it gave you the, I guess, essentials of Python in order, or what you'll need for pen testing and scripting, rather than, the really deep level, if there is much of a deep level to Python, right? It's a pretty high level language, but like, you don't need to be like in C++ or C or Go, right? You don't need to be that level of a coder for this job field. But I think Python is a very good one to do because it's pretty easy to pick up and it's a pretty friendly language, right? For people not familiar with programming. So it's a good starter language for sure. I enjoy it. And I don't even like coding.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear the different stories because our backgrounds, because Alyssa Knight is pretty well known in the industry, been doing pen testing for a long time. She's hacked APIs, been paid to hack automobiles and all sorts of stuff. And actually she doesn't code, which is kind of interesting. Someone that's at a high level. But one of the things I've noticed is people at a really high level, there's a high percentage that do some kind of coding or scripting. So it's good advice that you have there for people to look into that and learning a little bit about it.
Good. Yeah. Just a bit, not, you don't need to go too deep into, I think there, other things to focus on as well.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people get too carried away with, I've got to know this before I even start.
Yes.
And if you wait until you learn Python, you're not going to get, you may not get started.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that's quite a task to take on, right? To learn a whole language. But if you just get the basics, the rest, right? If you know what a method does and versus what a class and function and everything, right? Then you pick it up pretty well. It's just keywords beyond that, right? Knowing arguments and parameters, but everything you can pretty much look online and piece it together and then rely on other people right around you that are developers and do that every day and eat, breathe, and sleep code.
So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
I guess my advice, like coming into this, I just wanted to share with everyone something that I did in my political science journey. And then also coming into cyber is just saying yes to opportunities, right? Don't shy away from them thinking, oh, I've never done anything like that. Or, oh, that's scary. I mean, it is scary, right? Like if you need to present on stage at a conference or take on a new opportunity at work, like just say yes to it and see what happens, right? If you're in an environment that it's okay to fail, then you got to go for it, right? And then people will lift you up and you'll learn way more from it than if you didn't do that. And also don't wait for people to give you work or opportunities, like go chase after it and go for it, because usually people won't, right? They'll forget about you or they'll just do it themselves. But if you like make yourself known and like, get in their, what do you call it? I don't want to say in their face because that sounds aggressive, but like, make them know who you are and like your skills, and they know your background and they can see how you fit into the team and how you can give that value to the team. I think that is really important and has served me well. If I wouldn't have done that, I don't really know where I would be today, probably, because, especially being young, people are like, oh, she doesn't know anything. She doesn't really work hard, the stereotypes. So yeah, you have to break those and prove people wrong. And then also, like what we say at Horizon 3 is be a learn it all. So always try to learn everything that you can. And if you see something, right, that you're not familiar with or you've never heard of, just at least look into it at a surface level. Because there have been times I've been tempted to not do that, right, not go that extra mile. And then it comes up, sure enough, in like a conversation a week later, and you're like, oh, I really should have looked that up, because then I would know how to, contribute to this conversation or know what's going on. So those would be my, I think, 4 things to tell you guys to do that I try to live out on the daily basis.
Well, thanks for taking time to be on the show and share advice. It was cool to get to learn more about your background.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was super fun.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter at Phillip Wylie. Until next time.